What does it mean for data, especially website and marketing data, to be AI ready? Why does that matter?
It's just a matter of time when there'll be tons of different tools that you could use to kind of spit out reporting and intelligence and insights about your data. AI struggles with a messy or inconsistent, unstructured data.
How frequently do you recommend reviewing and auditing the data if you don't have like a big data team, for example?
At a bare minimum, you would want to have some sort of quarterly review to look at the status of the data. If data is impacting my campaign incompleteness, by fixing the data issue, am I getting better result out of my campaign?
A lot of companies, you want to get your product to market. It doesn't matter how, just get it out, build, and then you just kind of build upon that. And the tech debt or the data debt just keeps growing from there. And so I work with a lot of different organizations where data fixing is like the first thing that I look at because you can't make any decisions without proper data, let alone being able to use, now these AI tools that can really help catapult your decision making further. Today, we're going to be talking about the successful foundation of any AI implementation, and that is quality data. So, focusing on website analytics and broader marketing data is really important for ensuring that any AI tool that you might be using for analysis, insights is accurate. And so, today we have Filip and Arnab who are joining us. Filip is a digital strategy and analytics leader with over 20 years of experience turning data into measurable growth. He specializes in Google Analytics for implementation, funnel optimization, A/B testing, content strategy, and personalization, all things that help businesses connect users' needs and with the results that matter. Arnab is a CTO of TechScan IQ, a premier AI intelligence platform enabling clients to better value tech investments, make faster tech sales, and power transformative tech consulting. With his deep expertise in AI infrastructure, digital strategy, alignment, and strategic data governance, Arnab empowers organizations to navigate complex technology decisions confidently. Welcome, Filip and Arnab.
Hello, I'm Lisa. How are you?
I
Good. Thank you so much for joining the conversation today. I think this is such a critical conversation for marketers and honestly, like anybody that's looking to leverage AI within any part of any organization or at all. So I'm excited. But first, I'm going to share some of our truths and that we did work together at one time of our lives at RVC. And I was on the digital marketing side and working with both of you or with Arnab more specifically in his team on more of the analytics side. I would love to hear a little bit more from both of you on your history and how you really got into data and AI. So Filip, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I started with. I always been in a data as a digital marketer in the last whatever 15 years. I started using Adobe, then Google Analytics, then Adobe again, and then Google Analytics again. So been between those two platforms. But last 3 years, I started focusing on data and experimenting in AI. Because I find out that using data to confirm my hypothesis is the best way to kind of bring the confirm my hypothesis and bring value to the customers. That's why I kind of started working with the data and AI possibly in the near future.
Right on. Arnab, how about yourself?
my professional experience, I'll kind of skip my early years when I was trying to build things throughout my high school, university. My professional experience started off in digital marketing. Within 6 to 8 months, I realized it was back in 2008 that analytics is really important. How the decisions are being made. So I started to specialize in analytics. From that, I went into more digital analytics, data engineering, elements of it. I was very fortunate to be in data and AI very early in my career because it really shaped up to be how we do marketing today, how we do investments today. It has really have seen how we went from print based world to a digital world. I saw that transition and how data played a really key role there. So started through my career with data, and then just specialized on that over the years, and it has been a really awesome ride.
Yeah, no doubt. And within the financial industry as well, there's so much data available. So, like, you must have gotten so much exposure and experience with the different types of data sets and what you can do with it. But most importantly, why it's really important to keep that integrity of your data and make sure that it's healthy and clean. And so that leads me into this first question, which is, what does it mean for data, especially website and marketing data, to be AI ready? Why does that matter?
So from my perspective, it basically most important thing is that it is ready because it's just a matter of time when there'll be tons of different tools that you could use to kind of spit out reporting and intelligence and insights about your data and like reporting. So it's very important to have like clean and structured data. Give you a few examples like simple things like making name convention clear using snake cases or lowercase, making event names and all of the other parameters because more descriptive parameters to the specific event name will give you a more kind of details about event instead of having just like click on a button. You can say click on a button, I don't know, submit, click on a submit button. It tells you
Mhm.
what button it's clicked. So stuff like that is very important. Then it's in addition to that, it's important to have be timely and fresh. So all the time you need to make sure that anomaly detection it's present. So there's no typos on data types, etc. Because AI struggles with a messy or inconsistent, unstructured data.
Yeah, that's very fair.
So look, kind of was bang on right. Like you have to make sure that data is complete and accurate, is properly labeled and organized. You can access the data from a central location. If you have data all over the place, you can't access it anymore, right? You have to have the data, if in a banking, financial institutions or telecoms enterprises, the data has to be private and secure. You need to make sure the data is always updated regularly. And then it's to kind of Philip's kind of give a really amazing points about like naming conventions and things like that. It's really to structure the data in such a way that we can capture the behavioral patterns and the user intent. So those elements are super important. And then, like, to kind of Philip's point, like, if it's of AI, the data is going to be as good as the data that you feed in. So make sure the data is high quality, and that the organizations that have a really high, good quality data, or which is essentially AI ready data, they can achieve 300 to 500% ROI on the data quality initiative in the first 2 years. So those are really amazing stats to show why it's so important to have good data, good metadata, and data is organized in such a way that you can maximize it from AI and other use cases.
Yeah, that's a huge return on having AI or clean data for AI to read. And so is that return because AI tools are able to analyze, give you some like predicative next steps on how you can use that data? Whereas if it was dirty, it's just referencing information that might, be more false than true kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. And there's a similar study that was done, which is like the impact of the poor data, Melissa, to your point. Poor data quality, there's 85% of the AI initiatives fail today because of poor data quality or inadequate data preparation. So it is the flip side of the stats is this: if you have a good quality of the data, you get significant ROI. But if you have poor quality data, 85% of your AI initiatives would fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So investment into ensuring your data is clean. And once again, I know we're focusing more on marketing, but this is across the board with any type of data set that your AI tool or an AI tool will be reading.
And just to add one more thing that Arnab also mentioned, the accessibility of that data. It's very
Right.
important. Many times we don't think about that. We're like, yeah, data is there. But when we start kind of building the project, personalization, etc., and we need to kind of access the specific data, then we say, like, oops, we don't have whatever access to that data point because it's like whatever private or it's in a different tech stack, etc. So within enterprises, usually that could be the case as well.
Wow. Okay. Great points. And so you may have touched on it already in our first question, but when you're working with businesses, what data concerns do you typically see?
What I've been seeing last few years with GA4 implementation, moving from GA3, most of the companies or clients were kind of continuous using the GA3 data schema, which was based on category, action, and label, which is really old way of tagging the data or old parameters, because it's only like 3 parameters versus in GA4, where you can have as many as you want to describe one event. And another thing is that I've seen many times that people, users are not. It's either not using a naming convention or not using descriptive event name or parameter that makes sense.
I think this question answers the previous all the things that we covered. But yeah, to one point that Philip brought up, this the outdated information. There is an ongoing issue, in a bigger, large enterprise, is that as you do migration from one system to another system, be it Google Analytics or other, we try to do the minimal impact to the organization from a workflow perspective. So we try to kind of take what is there today and we kind of like packet to work in the newer system. So we over the time we tend to like accumulate a lot of data hygiene issues, and what essentially means we're looking at the accuracy degrades pretty fast because you just haven't put that effort to kind of migrate to the new system, new ways of
Mhm.
doing things. So there is a lot of impact, subsequent impact. Sometimes we try to think about you know, like a short-term impact and forget about the longer-term impact. Like data quality cost organizations like an average of $15 million annually because we haven't done those fixes yet. So that's a really important thing to consider is that in certain cases, for Google Analytics that kind of came up, is that if you are on Google Analytics 4 today, it's designed very differently than Google Analytics 3. And similar ideas, Genesis from an advice center or call center perspective, same thing,
Mhm.
bringing in this new technologies, which is really designed for the world today, event centric, really focus on, rethinking how you collect data, how you use data for today, as opposed to using the technology which was designed really 20 years back.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I didn't even think about the inheritance of old data as you're adopting or moving to new tools. It just sort of accumulates. And so, and I've definitely seen this as well happen. And you just have this mishmash of information on a whole other like sidebar. That's also how all the cloud services are raking in lots and lots of money because the storage from all that data and the increase in the data is just that cost is going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, knowing that we're inheriting data or there's different, data over time sort of accumulates, there might not be consistency in the naming conventions and how the data is managed. Just based on how you work with businesses, do most businesses know that their data is not good or that it is
Oh,
good?
I'll start
Huh.
with this one, Philip, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Most businesses do know. Most really recognize data quality is an issue. 94% of the business leaders do recognize that poor data quality negatively impact their organization. But what happens is the businesses they identify symptoms. So they look at, oh, the campaigns are underperforming or customers are complaining, the reports don't make any sense. But what they really really try to quantify what is exactly causing this issue. What are the root causes that's impacting these symptoms? Things that we don't recognize. Some of the point that Philip was making earlier, that like the inconsistent naming, metadata, and things. Those are the things that are really impacting your ROIs, but you don't really recognize it till the campaign has finished or people are complaining. So would it be, it's really important that we look at in a systematic way the data, where's data coming from, how data is being utilized, and how an entire workflow of data, and then look for solutions in fixing these issues.
To add, like I've seen a lot of kind of medium-sized companies that are really not aware that their data is kind of messed up, because in a nutshell, you still can create report using Locker Studio and Google Analytics, because Google kind of structured the data and it will be useful for reporting purposes. But as soon as you move the data in the BigQuery, and that's when the kind of raw data you have access to raw data, and then you want to start building like SQL queries to query this data, etc., make more kind of sophisticated reporting. That's when you see the data is messed up and this and that. However, I might say, like, most of us, we never thought that we need to build that data ready for AI 6 months
Mm.
or a year ago. Nobody thought about that. That's another thing, right? So it's kind of, and most of this, unless you're building a site today, you think about AI. But if you were
Mhm.
building a site last year, you will never think about, oh, I want my data to be ready for AI, right? So that's one of the things too.
Part of the problem is also that, you know, it's the way we build today. When we build, we want to build first, bring it to market, and then think of data. This is how
Yes.
we have always built experiences. I mean, very much
Yeah.
traditional organizations. So it was always has been an aftermath of that. But what's
Yeah.
with AI, and we have been talking about data-driven decision making for like last 15 years. But it
Yeah.
have never been the case, and the definition of data-driven decision making, it differs from who you ask. So it's really the way we were working in the past, where it was really data was an aftermath, as opposed to let's think of data from the get-go, because data is our product. It that's the core problem around some of the data issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good point that a lot of companies, you wanna get your product to market. It doesn't matter how, just get it out,
Yeah.
built, and then you just kind of build upon that, and the tech debt or the data debt just keeps growing from there. And so I work with a lot of different organizations where data fixing is like the first thing that I look at, because you can't make any decisions without proper data, let alone being able to use, now these AI tools that can really help catapult your decision making further. But no, that's such a really good point. It's really bringing data to the forefront.
Yeah. 100%.
So I know we mentioned the different maybe reasons why companies might not know that it is not the best, they don't have the best data quality, or maybe they know that they don't already. What are ways that companies can validate or just audit their marketing data?
There are kind of three ways to kind of look at this. One thing is you have to, from a marketing lens, there are marketing audit platforms that are available, right? It should be easiest for small to mid-sized businesses to start using. That's the easiest thing for them to do, as opposed to
Mhm.
larger enterprises. They have other capabilities that they can utilize. So things like Marketing Auditor, which provides automated Google Ads and analytics auditing. So these are the things that are really out of the box. They're giving you a lot of capabilities, like professional reports and things like that. That you don't have some of the resources and power of larger enterprises. There are things like Agency Analytics, which does a lot of integration out of the box. They provide things like white label dashboards and automated reporting that will make it easier from marketing audit perspective. Now, if you start to kind of mature out of that and you're just looking at data in general, and you're kind of a mature organization, and you are your kind of foundation is data and cloud and things like that, then you can start to look at DQ and other data validation platforms that are proactively identifying anomalies and other data issues, so that you're remaining on top of that.
Okay. Awesome. That's good. Great that there are different tools in place for different size organizations. They can kind of action it right away. I know there are other businesses that might just try and use the data as is and then figure out that, oh my gosh, something was wrong, or they have inaccuracies because, whatever they used just did not yield the right result. So it's finding out in a different way. But how frequently, I'm adding in another question here. How frequently do you recommend reviewing and auditing the data if you don't have like a big data team, for example?
I would say It depends on the organization and how important data is to your business. At a bare minimum, you would want to have some sort of quarterly review to look at the status of the data, and also to look at kind of from different lens. If you look at, there are some indices you can set up, some reports that does anomaly detections. We also have to look at, if data was impacting my campaign incompleteness. By fixing the data issue, am I getting better result out of my campaign? So it requires a bit of continuous monitoring, but then also it requires a bit of a KPI or monthly or quarterly review to see the initiative that we have taken to fix the data issues. Are they actually helping? Because sometimes, what happens is, we may think that if I were to fix like the naming convention, for example, that's going to fix a lot of the data problem, like, with dashboarding and reporting, but maybe that doesn't really impact your campaign as much as you think it does. So it does require a lot of assessment and understand what you're getting into, and you need to prioritize the biggest value problems, and then work your way backwards from a strategy perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just one simple kind of tip on validating the data on a daily basis. Like if you're using any of the BI tools like Locker, Adobe tools, anything, and watching any KPIs, I developed the habit to develop one like timeline chart on a daily basis so I can see how the events firing, the ones that I'm tracking, and right below, and you can see right away, oh, you know what, this month I have like 5 days, there's no event firing. So you know something wrong with that data. So that way it's kind of, you see right away if something is wrong with the data while you're reporting on it.
Yeah, to that point too, Philip, it's a really good point. I think that just reminds me, tools like Google Analytics have alerts set up, and
Yeah.
you look at those alerts as well, that alerts you whenever an event drops. So the continuous monitoring and alerts are more important than before. They're also really easy to set up.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a really good point, is almost to have a report for the data and to
Yeah.
continuously
Yeah.
review it. So now that you say that a company has run an audit, they've identified a bunch of different data concerns. What's your approach to fixing these data concerns? What would you say the first 2 to 3 steps are that businesses should take to address the data concerns and prioritize them as well?
I would say kind of we're going to break it down into essentially two phases. The first phase would be let's assess and get to the foundational level. So the few of the steps would be let's do a comprehensive data profiling. The data isn't just in Google Analytics. You have data in your CRMs, your marketing automation platforms. You have data. You have a lot of tools that you use for reporting. Ensure that you kind of identify all these sources that you're getting the data from. Then what you want to do is understand like the how the data flows across the systems and what's the book of record is. It's really important that you profile your data and understand how your data flows, where it's coming from. That's really the first step. Because all the organizations really try to fix data kind of in certain spots as opposed to at a foundationally that you have a good understanding assessment of how data flows. And then what you want to try to start to get to do is that, make sure you have the right standards, maybe conventions and things that are in place. And then you want to start to really add these validation rules. If you have a new convention of how events to be named, how you're naming, how are you doing your dates, how you're naming them, make sure there are rules that are in place that alerts you or automatically fixes those things, so that you are not seeing, so that you don't have to go and redo all this assessment ever again.
Just to add to that, like once you structure the data and everything, there is like a kind of data that comes in from your website or the app, and those are kind of you need to have a clear UTM strategy, for example, UTM strategy or URL strategy or or title page title strategy, and
Mhm.
use that same taxonomy all the time across all of the different pages or domains, etc. Because if you don't follow strictly that strategy, your data is gonna be messed up in like no time. And I've seen
Yeah.
that many times, especially on kind of, I would say, medium to small organization, like simple thing, UTM strategy, where you have source, medium, campaign, content, terms. If you mix those, instead of being source medium to be medium source, all of your campaign data, it's messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, really great points because you're showcasing how granular that the tagging and the information within the data, like how important it is and how granular it can get. And I know that Arnab mentioned a few different steps that you can take, but those are a big undertaking to really optimize your data. And it takes time and it takes, I mean, as Philip, you mentioned, strategy.
Just to add, like in big enterprises, you have proper data governance and ownership process and procedures where they own it. Where in small, medium companies, they bring the agency, they build the site, that they move on, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have anybody internally who really own the data, right? So that's the key. And then somebody else come in and they come up with a slightly different strategy, and then things start piling up and then get like all over the place, kind of. So that's another, I would say, issue.
Oh, I see it all the time. Yes, there's pros in being able to move a little bit fast and that agility for a small and mid-sized company.
Yeah.
But then you're right, that they're bringing all these different parties in. They're packing on all different types of projects that involve data that aren't tagged the same way. And, data is not at the forefront and the company can unfortunately suffer because of it. I'm going to ask you both a question that's not on this question board. Can you give me an example of a project or a scenario where you saw data used in a way that actually showed a ton of return for a client or on a project?
So basically, I think many times I've seen good structured data when you have really kind of good descriptive data points. For example, let's say you have a product and you have a product type, you have product or customer value or product volume, etc. So these are all parameters describing specific products. So if you have that, it's much easier for you to kind of create a campaign tomorrow to target those high value customers, right? So you're spending, I don't know, your cost of acquisition of a customer is like $2. But if you can get a high value customer for $2, then it's like, wow, amazing, right? But if you get like low, so these are the kind of data points that could lead to kind of a better optimized revenue generation if you have better, kind of more structured data, I would say.
Okay.
So I think as part of the tech scan IQ work, we got to assess a lot of companies, kind of the tech stack, their data stack. What we see is that the companies, the organizations that are, the two things, the organizations that are a bit, newer, like the health techs and fintechs of the world, because they are more aware of data and the importance of it. You see the lot more cleanliness in terms of data, and you get even the way their websites and their campaigns are structured is that that you get really great insights out of the box.
Well,
And one of the things that I think that's the key thing is really we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier about kind of centralization of the data, but it's a bit bigger. Just having that culture of ownership and culture of data, but it's also the culture of really driving value end to end. It really makes a difference because if sometimes some of the larger organization, what you see is that the roles and responsibilities aren't always clear. Like you're only if you are in marketing or in campaign, just responsible for just sending the campaign out. You're not really responsible for ensuring that the person that's doing reporting on it is can report on it. It's really having that end to end, ensuring the end to end. There's a culture of ownership of campaigns, marketing, creation of content and product, where data is baked in. That we start to see that organizations that have really figured that out at a foundationally of that kind of culture, that we start to see that the assessments when we do, they come out as highly valuable from a tech and data perspective, because it's so easy to invest in these companies if you are private equity or investment bank or whatever, or if you're going to do business with them, if you're from a sales intelligence, but it's easier to do business with them event because the thing is clear. But if an
Mhm.
organization is disjointed in terms of the way things are put together, you start to see that it's very hard to work with them, invest in them, and all of that. So I would say that's the example that I could think off top of my head, having kind of good data leading to really good results, and then bad data and bad, essentially kind of like not bad, but essentially kind of siloed data and siloed practices leading to negative results of performance.
Yeah, no, and it's a good example because you're showcasing how a culture of putting data first can lead to higher returns at the company level overall. Whereas if you don't, once again, you might not understand the data that you're reading. So I look at data all the time to make decisions. But I know what's in Google Analytics and sometimes even in our ad platforms is not the best data. Maybe we're not blocking all the necessary IPs. Maybe we're not, just tracking every single instance that we probably can be of the different events to make those right decisions. So the better quality the data you have, the more ROI you can get, not just from a marketing campaign, but at the overall company level as well.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
All right. Well, we'll lead into our last question, maybe second last. How can a company validate that the data that they're now collecting has improved?
I think you have to just start with initially some sort of benchmark that you want to put into place. So it would be like look at the things like data accuracy rate, completeness score, consistency indices. Some smaller organization might have struggle with some of these things, but you really think about what defines data being accurate for you, what it defines data being complete for you. So think about those some of those metrics and start to define them first. So that those are really your baseline to indicate what data is data, like the quality of the data. The next thing you want to see is that is it really improving some of your KPIs? Are you reducing your data processing time? Is your campaign performance are improving because of it? Because if the campaign performance isn't improving, that probably means you are not fixing the right problems. And then look at, are people complaining less? Like there has been decrease in customer service issues, and are your trusted partner across the organization? Do they trust the reports and things that are coming out of your data team? And then kind of work your way back, work your way up to see, can we come up with some sort of ROI calculation framework by having better campaign resulting in making more money? Like, are we converting clients at a faster rate? Are
Right.
we getting the most out of our campaigns? So really start kind of at the baseline, and then go from the baseline to like see the campaigns are performing well, and then start to look at some of the business metrics and how are they getting impacted through your data quality initiatives.
Right
Uh,
on. Thank you for sharing that. Philip, anything else to add?
I'll take a little more kind of simple approach where, start point, it's like how easy to basically build report, and like if it's easy and self-explainable, the data that you're looking at, that's the kind of right data, assuming it's kind of correct. The other thing that you can do is like usually every company have a backend data or call it actual that you can colorate and make sure that app starts or app complete that you see on GA4 align with the actual. It shouldn't be more than 5 to 10% data discrepancy in that case. So those are, I would say, first two things that I would use to make sure the things are working as expected. And then I think those two are the the
Those are good
the
starting points.
easiest one to start with. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good tip. Just try and make a report. Do you trust it? Does it look accurate? Yeah, and then build into Arnab what you were mentioning about really defining what good looks like and ensuring that you're seeing the changes within those your company objectives or your team objectives as well, which is huge. Thank you both so much. This has been super insightful. I think the main thing that I walked away with is that companies really just need to start adopting data as a part of their culture and moving it to the forefront instead of just thinking that it's something that can be collected in the background and you can leverage it when you need to. You really need to start improving that data quality in order for it to be effective for you.
100%.
Yeah, I agree. And the culture is really important. And I think, if you have a culture of innovation and if a culture of bringing the right people, aligning to them the right work, and you give them that ownership to really move things forward and really make, data at the foundation of it, it really helps to keep the organization moving forward.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And to end this,
Yeah.
I just add that, using the strategic approach like we have about building the site or building the application, same with data. We need to kind of change that instead of just like tagging everything. Let's tag everything. We need to kind of create a proper kind of measurement framework starting from, business objective, KPIs, etc., and then putting that into our kind of data structure, and then then reporting will help out down the road.
Yeah, that's huge. We should have started with that point.
I know.
But it's all right. We're ending with it,
Yeah.
and that's a really, really important point to mention. And so, yeah, making sure your data is tied to your KPIs. Wow.
Yes.
Thank you both again so much. And, I'm pretty sure I'll probably have you back on here to dive deeper and provide some, different reports or examples as well in the future.
Great.
So
Thanks
thank you
for
so
having us,
much.
Melissa.
No
Great.
problem.
Bye, guys.